But what you really get is an afternoon where you've drunk wine, you've laughed, you've giggled, you've bitched, you've howled, you've cried. And there's a science behind that.
Welcome to Ciao Bella, hosted by me, Erica Firpo, a travel journalist based in Rome. Each episode of Ciao Bella, I sit down with Italy's creators, contemporary artists and artisans, designers, culinary experts, heritage brands, and innovative aesthetes, and more who are defining and redefining 21st century Italy. Pull up a chair and join in. Hey, welcome back to Ciao Bella. Today I am here with Debbie Travis. Debbie Travis is a British-Canadian master of paint and plaster, as Oprah once called her. She is a lifestyle guru. She wears so many hats. She's an author. She brought DIY to television. She is kind of a woman of many, many, many skills, and she's in Tuscany. Welcome, Debbie.
Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, I'm in Tuscany, a bit overcast, but it's great to be back here. Yeah, fantastic.
We have sunny today in Rome, which is really nice for this January day. We've had a little bit of gray. So it's great. It's really, really great to get you on Ciao Bella. I am so excited to talk to you because I do know a little bit about you. I have had the privilege of kind of cyber stalking you.
Okay.
I know we have some friends in common. I've been a big fan of what you do, but your career is so huge and it's so broad. And I want to know what brought you to Italy. So let's go back and tell everybody what brought a British Canadian woman to Montefallonica.
I am actually British, but I had quite a few years in Canada because basically I lived in London all my 20s, behaved as badly as most people do in their 20s. And I was a model. I know it's hard to believe now, but I was. And I
Absolutely not. For someone who was like, I just rolled out of bed, you're gorgeous.
Oh God, thank you. But anyway, but I wasn't a very good one. And I did a lot of television shows, catalogs and commercials and stuff. And I was intrigued by the behind the scenes of these commercials. I wanted to be that producer running around with a clipboard. It was way more interesting than, trying on lipstick and stuff. And so I found a way to get into the television industry. And you basically in London, you find the right pub where all the TV guy goes, and bit by bit. Anyway, I ended up at the BBC, and I was as low down as you can go, sweeping the floors and stuff. But somehow I ended up getting myself to go to the Cannes Film Festival in the south of France, and the world famous Cannes Film Festival. And first day there, I met a guy, packed it all in, and followed him like an idiot to Canada, and it was so unprofessional, So I ended up young, alone, and then pregnant in this foreign country, and I wasn't very happy for a long time, and I ended up having 2 children in the space of a year and a half, and a man I'd never even had a date with. And I'm still married with him today. You saw him for 2 seconds, getting us onto the Zoom. And anyway, so I kind of built a life there. And what was happening in England at the time was all these paint finishes, which was a way of really doing, like you see all over Italy, faux marble and tortoiseshell and stuff. And my friend in London had gone to some classes to do it. So I thought, well, I can do that. So I used to ring her up and say, okay, how do I do Tuscan stone? How do I, so I was sponging and ragging and dragging. And whatever I did, it sounds ridiculous, but it was a success. It was like, because it was the first. So
okay, I just want to pause really quick because you're making it sound really easy. And I will say that in the 90s, I had a boyfriend who was a decorative painter, who was an incredible artist. And he did Venetian plastering and faux marbling. Yeah. And at one summer, I got to be his assistant, which you can imagine how thrilling that was in the relationship. But, I had an art background too. So I was like, I can do Tuscan walls. It is not that easy. I did the sponging. Not that much fun either for me, because it was hard. So,
and I still get hate mail from people's houses that I did saying, could you please come and get this off 25 years later? But it wasn't that easy, but I was young,
and you were good at it, obviously.
Well, I guess I wasn't even that artistic, but you know, I had an Italian partner in Montreal, a woman, a girl really, who was brilliant at trompe-l'oeil. You know, she could make faux panels, or you know, she could make a wall look like somebody was walking through it. So she made me look really good. Anyway, bit by bit, I started a school. So I was doing people's houses. They were flying me down to New York all the time to do Bloomingdale's windows, and it just exploded. Anyway, I decided I was starting to smell of paint thinner, and you know, my children were like, "Oh, you stink, Mum," and my car smelt of chemicals and things like this. So I thought, well, why don't I make a video showing people how to do this? Because everyone was asking, well, how do you do that? You know, you are with your feather and stuff. Anyway, I made a video called Decorative Paint Finishes Made Easy, and it's exploded. So I went to
what you uploaded it onto YouTube? Where did you put this video?
This is way before YouTube. This was VHS. So this was in the time, the DIY, or the, you know, things like Jane Fonda doing exercise, all this stuff. Suddenly there was this new medium where everything was on a VHS, you know, movies. This is way before all that. Anyway, so, but they were sold, these kind of how-to things. Julia Childs doing cooking, me doing decorating, was sold in gift shops. So I went to the gift show in Atlanta, and I was taking orders that I was like, how many zeros are on this? You know, 100,000 to your Bloomingdale's, 100,000 here. Anyway, before I knew it, I'd sold over 1 million, and I started to get invited on radio shows and television shows. And then what happened was, you know, I remember the radio guys were like, this sounds about as interesting as watching paint dry, because they were all men. And then suddenly it was like the lights would be shining up, because what it did was it took an ordinary mum who didn't have much money. It gave them the opportunity, you know, on a Saturday afternoon to sponge their kids' walls or stencil patterns on. You didn't have to be a designer. Anyway, one day I was at a television show, and actually I was in the green room with Tom Hanks, and he was promoting his film. And I remember this producer coming in and asking Tom Hanks to hurry up and speed his interview up, because I was here. And he said, really, what are you doing? And I was like, well, I'm showing people how to strip off wallpaper type of thing. And he was like, wow, it's amazing. I think Rita would love what you're doing. Anyway, what happened was at this particular television show, they said, would you be interested in turning this into a television show? And this was the beginning of, it was like, I know. And I was like, who would watch a TV series about paint? And of course, I did it for 25 years, and it was the first one. And this is before HGTV, Home and Garden Television. So it was first PBS in America, then it was Oprah's channel, which was the old Oprah's channel, then it was HGTV. So these cable channels exploded, because it meant that people, if they wanted to watch golf all day, they could watch golf. If they wanted to watch food, they watched the Food Network. And this was a new thing. That really exploded in the noughties, if you will, you know, the end of the 90s. And I did many series. So we started our own television company to do this.
You know, I know I asked you what's the, you know, lifestyle jewelry, woman of all hats. I mean, essentially we could say that you're a pioneer.
Yeah, I think I am a pioneer.
I think you for sure are a pioneer of video and then cable television and do-it-yourself television. Wow.
Yeah, well, you know, we ended up, of course, it is do it yourself. But when you start, you're making the crew lunch, which is your husband and you know, and the kids are asleep in a basket, but wherever you're filming. But bit by bit, the numbers ballistic. They were great, and then the budgets grew, and then we started after this. This first series was called The Painted House, and people will still walk up to me in the street. Young people say, you know, you mean so much to me, because I came home from school and I used to watch with my mom, and we were in 80 countries, 25 languages. And we started, as the budgets got big, we would start to go abroad. And what happened? So the idea was...
That's what I wanted to ask you. Did you just work in Canada at first? Was it at your house?
Well, actually, it was in the US. So the production company was in Montreal, but the show was for America. And then it was on in Canada. And then within weeks, it was sold worldwide. So we drove all the way down the East Coast. We went everywhere. I mean, we went to Philadelphia, we went to Boston, we went, you know, and we would take a house and we would do it up. And it was pretty ghastly, really, because it was all around a theme. And so by the time the budgets got big, maybe on year 3 or something, we were doing themes. So we would go to the Caribbean and we would do reggae style. We would learn what reggae style was. We would come back and some poor sod would be given a reggae style living room. Well, of course it was free, so nobody said anything. That was the funny thing about these decorating shows, which everybody remembers, was because, you know, when the cameras were cut and all the expensive furniture that was borrowed left, you were left with polka dot walls and, you know, stuff like that. So it was a kind of crazy time. Anyway, but the point was that we went to England, we went to France, we went to the Caribbean, we went to the Adirondacks, we gave somebody an Adirondack style, you know, bathroom, but we went to Italy. And we did about 4 different pieces in Italy. And we started in the north. And, you know, my husband was directing me then. And of course, then I had to fire him when I got so big years later. But we started with Alberto Alessi in Milan, who is the designer, the manufacturer of all the beautiful Alessi products, and amazing guy. And then we worked our way down. And the first...
Wait, so you did Alberto Alessi's house?
No, I interviewed him for another piece on a show.
Okay.
With Mandini. And Mandini and Alessi were our best friends. And, you know, that he did the Swatch watch and the smart car and the famous Mandini tile chairs. And Alessi, I mean, and they were so handsome, these 2 men. But from Milan, we drove down through the Cinque Terre. And as you know, the Cinque Terre, these little towns on the coast, very beautiful. And I knew nothing about Italy at all. And we saw from the road a town that was all painted. So the houses were all different colors. And then there was a lot of trompe-l'oeil. And trompe-l'oeil, which means trick of the eye, is if you couldn't afford, you know, stone corners on a house, they painted it. Or on villas. You see it everywhere today, everywhere. And, or you wanted, you know, they would do trompe-l'oeil window boxes. So it would be, you know, it would look from afar like a real window box, but it was paint. So we stopped on the side of the road, and there was a cameraman and a sound man and me and a couple of assistants, and we started filming, and it was 1 o'clock. And as we started filming, high up on the cliff, this old lady comes out, and she's dressed all in black, and she starts shouting at us. And we thought, oh God, what have we done? And nobody spoke Italian. Anyway, bit by bit, we worked out what she was saying was, it's a lunchtime. You know, why are you working? And it's a lunch. And she invited us into her house for lunch. We said, well, we can't because we have 2 vans full of expensive equipment. And she said, you know, no problem. The Nona comes out, stands in front of the vans, you know, like 4'2". And we go in and we sat on a terrace. Family came from everywhere. Where she got this food from, I don't know. We were there for hours. And we got back in the van and we were like, what just happened? It didn't matter that nobody understood what anybody was talking about. You know, there were children and grandparents and this and that. But there was something marvelous about it. And then this scenario happened like throughout the trip. Like one day we were lost and there was an old man on the side of this dirt road. And we asked him which way to go, and he got in the car, you know, with his stick, avanti, avanti. We're like, you know, if that happened in North America, you know, you'd call the police. And there was this warmth and this magic. And so my husband and I just really, we just couldn't get over it. And we started to dream. And this is what happens to so many people. And it's the what if one day we make enough money, we didn't know where to go. So over the years, we started putting pins in maps. Every holiday was in Italy, whether it was in Puglia or Sicily or in the north or the south or Tuscany or wherever. We kept this dream alive. Anyway, long story short, I did one series after another. There was The Painted House, then Facelift, which when I arrived in Tuscany here, it was on television here 4 times a day. It was called SOS Debbie. Anyway, I did loads of series. I was a guest and a regular guest on many shows like Oprah, which was obviously the biggest. I did 8 decorating books at the time. I had a product line. I had syndicated columns in newspapers all over America, and you know, you just had it was a factory of work. But we would come here and we would climb over walls, we'd look at these ruins, we'd dream, just as naive as anybody, you know. Anyway, but every time we came, we felt good. And this is what we kept saying, why do we keep smiling? Why are our skin looks good, we feel happy, we love each other more when we're in this country. There were so many reasons. But whereas when you go on a normal holiday, everybody says, well, when you go on holiday, you feel relaxed, you feel good. But we kept it up when we went back. And so the dream started to come into fruition. And then we looked seriously for 5 years. And then we got a bit jaded. We just couldn't find the tick off list, you know, I want this, I want this, I want this. We were working with estate agents, you know, real estate agents, and that was hard. I don't know if it's changed, but 12 years ago, it was really tough. You know, they just didn't take you seriously, or they took you too seriously, and they'd send you to some broken down villa and there'd be 4 agents waiting for a check. And I'm like, I haven't even gone inside yet, you know? Anyway, as what happens with most people, it's, you know, it's the guy in the bar, the baristas, brothers, uncles, hamsters, sisters, friend who knows of a house. And that's what happened. And we got a call. We were back in Montreal in Canada filming, you know, we were doing many shows then, not just for me. And we still do, you know, we do crime shows, we do all kinds of stuff. Anyway, we got a call from a guy we'd met.
Wait,
who had
crime shows?
Oh yeah, we do a lot of murder shows as well. We do. We do that show on Netflix called Real Detective. There's a, you know, it's all about the, you know, that's us. So we do, it used to be about paint colors and, you know, some of the cooking shows we did, the icing on the cake. Now it's about where did they find the feet, you know. But so, you know, in any business, you move on, you progress.
Evolve, right.
You evolve, you go
to crime, to real crime stories.
Well, it pays more money than decorating shows. But that's how we began with decorating shows. But this guy called us up, and my husband, I was filming and I couldn't come, and my husband came over and he came to see this ruin, which is where I'm sitting now. And he rang me up and he said, listen, you need to come out and see this. If you don't like it, I'm not coming back, and I'll marry somebody in the village. And the average age in our village is 85. And so, but it took me several months to come. And this place was your typical ruin. But I'd already had this idea that I didn't want to be an expat doing nothing. And I know a lot of people have this same dream, many people. And one of the things that goes wrong, and we have, you know, a mutual friend, and we were talking about this, is you've got this romance of a place, but you can't just, you know, you just come and then what? You get fed up of your friends coming, you know, your family doesn't come anymore because they're busy going, they want to go to Florida this year or whatever. And so you need to do something. You need to have, you know, a role to play. And it's very important. And I thought, well, listen, I have this huge place. I have all this volume, which means a footprint. So I have pigsties and barns. So I can build a place that's bigger than I need. Why don't I invite others to come here? And this was the beginning of the explosion of the retreat business, which now, as you know, over the years, has just gone crazy. So we did a 5-year renovation, and it was sheer madness. I had 80 people here. My Italian is dreadful. And when I say dreadful, off the charts, useless. And it still is. But I managed with these wonderful men and, you know, just drawing stuff in the dirt. And it took really over 5 years. And we opened in 2015 to 20 women sobbing in the driveway because our view will bring you to your knees, you know. And we did our first retreat. And then we got a lot of press. We were very lucky. Television shows came out here because it was all new. And I did it very, very high end. I wanted it to be a place that that women could I started with women, that women could come. They didn't have to think about anything. They didn't have to say, oh, well, I've never been on my own. I've never traveled abroad, or, you know, and a lot of women do come on their own. You know, we pick you up in Rome and we deliver you back to the airport. And so it gave women an opportunity to also be safe, but also to meet like-minded women. So we've actually had women who've gone into business together. You know, there's a lot of crying, a lot of drinking, a lot of laughing, a lot of fun, you know.
So
and
it's like a week-long retreat.
Yeah, it's a week, and we supply everything. So that, and the point of that is you can put your purse under the bed, you can forget about it, because, you know, you can, if you take all the issues and all the daily, where am I going to eat, where am I going to go, how much does that cost, away from people, then you get this empty map in somebody's head, and then ideas can come in. And you see these women turn into children. They're like 14-year-old girls at camp. You know, their behavior is atrocious. You know, at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm like, girls, you know, you've got yoga at 7, go to bed. They are having the time of their lives because they've left everything behind. And, you know, we get women who've gone through bad divorces, or they've been in the same job for 15 years and they're fed up of it, or they want a dream and they want to know that they're the same and share. They never stop talking, never. The yoga teacher who's from around here says, this is the noisiest yoga class I've ever taught. It's just dreadful. People are in downward dog going, well, how many kids do you have? I know, I did that, you know, and it's like, it's really funny because they're letting it all out and it's magic.
And now it looks like, you know, I was looking through your site and I know the retreat that I would like to do. You have not just one, it's many different kinds of retreats. In fact, the one that I was like, this is the retreat for me, is the classic car one.
Ah, it's the biggest.
That looks so cool.
It is really cool. So basically a lot of women came and said, I want to come back with my husband. And they come, we have women or guests from Australia, South Africa, England, Canada, and America. I mean, basically all over. And you know, you put women of different ages together. You put women from different countries, different jobs, different backgrounds. And like I said, magic happens. And then a lot of women said, oh, well, I'd love to come back with my husband. So we started these gourmet cooking weeks. So of course the guys arrived thinking, I'm only here to keep her quiet, you know, but they ended up loving it because it's the camaraderie. And then my husband is a classic car fanatic. He loves old cars. So just before COVID, we had one planned. And of course it fell through. And then it went ahead last September, 4 months ago. And the roles were reversed. So you see men, they're up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, guys, we don't start, you know, the engines till 9 o'clock. Go and have breakfast. Or can I watch the mechanics polishing? Can I go and help? Can I? And one guy said to me, I have not smiled this much since my wedding day. He says, the muscles in my cheeks, because you're giving, you know, and the way we do it is well, I don't want to be sexist. The women do drive as well. It's mostly couples, but we get some singles come too. And we use Jeep, what do you call it? What do they call when you speak into them? Walkie-talkies.
Yeah.
So no maps, no this, and it is amazing. So you've got all these lines of classic cars, and we did a mountain day, we did a beach day, we did a Chianti day, and then we did the last day is a movie day. So I set up now we put all the women together and all the men together, and they were given clues because, you know, around this area of Tuscany, there's all kinds of movies have been made, you know, from The Gladiator to The English Patient to, and of course now Succession. I've done season 3 here. So anyway, there's many films. So they've got all these clues, and they have to go and find the clue, and then, you know, so it's, and then of course we stop at amazing restaurants on the way, some Michelin starred, some in castles, some in monasteries, and of course no drinking because they're in these beautiful cars. And then at night they get back here and they have their aperitivo, and then there's a fabulous dinner here and a million stories to tell, you know.
That just sounds fabulous.
It is. It is. So, you know, for me, we still got our television company. As I said, we're still making shows and everything. And of course, with COVID, we're all getting used to working from home. So, you know, we have an office here and, you know, it's a new way of working. And then about 10 times a year, we do these events. And now what is interesting is we do private events. So people started to come to me to say, you know, I'm an inspirational speaker, or I've got a following and I've written some best-selling books, or, you know, I'm a mindfulness expert. Can I take your place over? So that's really interesting for me because, you know, it's not about me, it's about them. So they bring their group, they bring, you know, 20 people, and we just help them set it all up. If they want yoga, if they want massage, because it's a big property and a lot of land and, you know, lots to do here kind of thing. Great pool and everything, and meeting rooms.
One of the things you said that, you know, you had this guest who said his face hurt from smiling so much. And actually, to be honest, the whole time we've been talking, I've been smiling, and I understand what he's saying, because you do bring that like ebullient joy. And that brings me to Joy, your book.
To Joy.
Because you just have, I don't even know how many books you have on you know, in your author shelf, but you have a ton. And in November of 2021, Joy came out. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So, so I did 8 decorating books with Random House in New York, and then they asked me, because I became quite well known and doing a lot of speeches about being a working mum. You know, and there's something bizarre about standing on the stage with 1,000 women sobbing in front of you, saying, "I can't get through another day," you know. And so I wrote a book called Not Guilty. And, you know, because all mums feel guilty about their kids and doing it right and doing it wrong and everything. Anyway, the book was a bestseller. And then a few years later, I wrote a book called Design Your Next Chapter. And that was basically using my journey. Like the renovation here was easy compared to, am I doing the right thing? You know, I'm giving up a successful world to put toilet rolls in people's rooms. You know, I mean, oh my God, you know, be careful what you wish for type of thing. So I wrote a book called Design Your Next Chapter, which again did really well. And then I realized that a lot of letters I got off people felt they'd lost their passion, they weren't well, and they had a lack of vitality. And one thing Italy has is a level of vitality. I mean, they moan and groan here, but you know, you see an 85-year-old walking up those hills and you're like, what? You know, and I started to study, especially the Tuscan way of life. What is it? You know, the food, the way they eat, the community that brings this joy into the life. So that was the next book, because you can't start a next chapter unless you've got the energy to do it. And that's what people are lacking, especially at a certain age. You get to the stage where, you know, you look at somebody like David Attenborough, he's 95 and he's just got a new series out about penguins or something, you know, 95. And so when somebody is 50 and says to me, "Oh, I think I'm too old," I'm like, you've got a long time ahead of you. So we must look after ourselves. So it's a kind of mindfulness wellness book, but it's also a picture book, because to me, a picture sells a story. So an amazing photographer from North Carolina came here for a month, and she photographed a retreat. She photographed everything going on here. And we put recipes in as well. So the recipes are typical Tuscan, you know, things like ribollita and peachy pasta and things like that. But they're not so much about the food. It's about doing it together. So like there's jam making in it. Now, if somebody had said to me, you know, 5-8 years ago, you're going to be making jam or jelly, as you call it, I would say, oh, don't be ridiculous. I'm far too busy for that kind of stuff. But now when you see how lonely people are getting, and they're losing the ability, especially younger people, to get people together.
To connect, I know what you're saying.
So the Italians are good at this. You know, in the summer, you go to any village and you'll see the nonnas rolling out pasta. They can buy just as good a pasta in the shop. It's about working, you know, the grandchildren running around. It's about them bitching about their husbands. It's about them talking about what did she think she was doing wearing that dress. It's about life. And that's what we've kind of walked away from. So the jam making is about, say to your next door neighbor, bring a friend, I'm bringing a friend, bring your own jars. I'll get the plums because they're in season, or the peaches, and we'll spend Sunday afternoon making jam. So yes, at the end of it, you might get a nice jar of jam. But what you really get is an afternoon where you've drunk wine, you've laughed, you've giggled, you've bitched, you've howled, you've cried. And there's a science behind that. So that's the next step of the book. So my oldest friend, really from the age of 18, is a very, very good nutritional therapist in London. So she knows all the stuff about cortisol and the endorphins and all this kind of stuff. So I would say to her, you explain it to me, what happens when you're laughing in a kitchen with a bunch of friends to your body. So we have these, she's called Jackie, and they're called Jackie boxes. And that explains, like we all understand, or we've all heard of the runner's high, right? The runner's high. We know that, not that I've ever had it, but, you know, so we know that when people go run, yeah, you do. Yeah. So you get, you know, I used to
go running, and I'm not a morning person. I read a book on Bruce Lee, and I fell in love with Bruce Lee and his mentality. And so I started working out, and I started running, and I was never a runner. And then all of a sudden, like I had to run every morning. I didn't run. I think I ran like 3 or 4 kilometers, but I ran them. I didn't jog. I was running, pushing. And then I would do it at 6 a.m, which I never got up before 7. But it was like, I craved it. Kind of like, I was like, it would be like, I'd go for a run, and then I'd want to have like a really good drink after at like 6 a.m. It was weird, because I was like, this is great. It was like an amazing, it was amazing.
Yeah, because you were craving the feeling, not the physical, that's the hard work, but the feeling it was giving you. It's like the same as the end of the day, you've had a long day. It's that first glass of wine. It's that expectation. Yes. Now, some are habits, some are good habits, some are bad habits, but there is a chemical in your body that's causing that. So we put that in as well. So it's simple, but it makes you understand. It's why we put on weight. There's a chapter on sleep, because
I just was looking at that actually.
Well, if you look at how the Italians sleep, you know, you can set your clock by the time, you know, I always think if you flew over Italy at like 11 o'clock, you see all the lights going out at the same time. They are creatures of habit. And the siesta. So when we were doing the renovation here, at exactly 12:30, the phone calls start to Mama about what they're going to cook for lunch. And they're talking about food. And at 1 o'clock, tools go down. Like, you can set your clock by it. And then I thought, well, okay, so for Americans, when they come to Italy and they see the shops closing for a couple of hours at lunchtime, you think, what a ridiculous thing. They're losing all that business. But actually, it's a wonderful thing. But then you think, are they sleeping for 2 hours? They're not. They're sleeping for 20 to 30 minutes, because that's your rhythms, you know. And again, that's the science in the book. Because people say, well, if I nap, you know, I feel all groggy and horrible. But that's if you go into a deep sleep. So if you go to sleep for an hour, you've gone into a different rhythm, and you know you do feel you've gone into a deeper sleep. So they do these short naps, and it becomes a habit. And they have a coffee before they go to sleep. So the coffee, 20 minutes, 30 minutes later, gives them the boost later on. And if you do that, then you don't have the kind of sugar highs that a lot of North Americans have at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, because they go and get a donut because they need that boost of energy. So there is a science behind all this. So the book is these, you know, lessons from a Tuscan villa. And a lot of it is not saying, it's better to live here, or, you know, the Tuscan way of life. It's because this is a traditional way of life, and it's how our grandmothers and great-grandmothers lived all over the world. So they had better communities. They had more routine in their lives. They ate better. They ate fresher food. And so it's trying to bring back some of those simple things that don't cost any money, you know, back into our lives. So it's, you know, people say, well, you know, I can't move to Tuscany. But also the guests that come here, the reason I wrote this is because at the end of the week, we do a forum, and people look amazing. It's like, forget Botox and facelifts and stuff like this. You know, they all look 10 years younger. And they all say the same thing. And they get a bit angry with me. And they say, you know, I haven't felt like this for years. But it's not fair. You have an orto, you have a vegetable garden, you have land, you have a medieval village with little old ladies sitting on the wall in the evening talking. I don't have that. I live in an apartment in Philadelphia or whatever. How do I bottle this? How do I bring it home? So that's what the book's about. It's about, it doesn't tell you one diet to do. Of course, it's based on the Mediterranean diet, but it's about community, it's about sleep, it's about purpose. And then I put in, am I rambling?
No. You're wonderful.
So, but the other thing, because I was so intrigued by the locals, I started to interview, and that, you know what Italians are like, they're very funny people. They have a very similar sense of humor, I find, to the Brits. And not that I understand a lot of it, but, you know, you'd ask these 80-year-olds in the village that, you know, these little stories, or, you know, why do you look so great? And you're 86 and, you know, you're looking at the girls and all this kind of stuff. And they tell you these stories and they're magical. So in each one, there's a little, in each lesson, there's a little picture, all in black and white, of a local. And
I love Mr. Trombetti.
Mr. Trombetti. Well, Mr. Trombetti was born on this property. There were, it's a Podera, you know, a fortified farm. And Mr. Trombetti and his family, there were 20 of them lived on the top floor. And now he's got, you know, an apartment, very new apartment in the village. And he comes down here sometimes and I say, you know, this is a completely different property now. And he's like, oh, you can keep that pile of stone. You know, I've got my nice apartment that doesn't cost me much to run. And he's like in his late 80s. But, you know, they all have a story. And then they're not all locals, because one of them is Frances Mays, who wrote Under the Tuscan Sun. And I became very good friends with Frances because the first year I was living in a tent with no roof inside the rubble, until finally there was no plumbing and the builders said, you need to get an apartment somewhere. But I didn't know anybody. I didn't know where to get my hair cut. I didn't know where to buy tile. I didn't know anything. And so I found, through social media, I found a phone number for Frances because she sells olive oil from her farm in Cortona. So I rang her up. And again, this is what I like to get across to people, because people are like, oh, I could never do that. But you don't have a choice today. We have to reach out. And she didn't say get lost. I said, look, I'm really lonely. I don't know anybody. I barely speak. She'll come for a cup of tea. Well, of course, that ended up into 2 bottles of wine. And she's been friends ever since. And I asked her with this book, I said, look, I'm writing a chapter about purpose, because every country in the world has a word or a phrase, the raison d'être in French, qi in Chinese, you know, all different Asian countries have it. And it means basically my reason for getting up in the morning. And if a woman says, I don't have, or if anybody says, I've lost my reason to get out of bed. I don't wake up with excitement. I wake up without a purpose. That is a very hard, upsetting, sad scenario. Frances, who's, you know, maybe 20 years older than me, she's got more energy than anybody I know. She's on to her, God knows how many books. I think she's got another novel coming out, another movie's being done on a book. She's during lockdown, she did a pasta book, and she's incredible. So I said, will you tell me something about purpose? You're sitting in this small Italian town, Cortona. And she said, and so she wrote a beautiful piece about what purpose means to her. And she said, it can be as simple as, I want these 8 pages finished by the end of the week, or I'm going to go and find those gorgeous peaches that are in the shop, you know, or I'm going to go and chat with so-and-so in the market today. They can be, it doesn't mean I have to own a conglomerate, you know, because I think we've got so used to purpose, and passion has got to be about being, you know, super wealthy and successful. But actually we're dialing back now because of what's happened to everybody with COVID. And really it's about how I feel when I call a friend who I haven't spoken to since school. That's purpose. So she wrote she wrote such a beautiful piece. I said, God, you make my writing look like crap. She's such a good, oh my God, she's such a good writer. I'm so envious. But yeah, so there's these little stories of local people that we can all adapt. And some of the letters I had one yesterday. Somebody said, I just finished the last page and I'm starting at the first again. And to me, that means everything, because you're trying to give them joy through these beautiful pictures, just beautiful. But it might be just a tree. So you don't have to come to Tuscany to see a tree. So, you know, we talk about forest bathing, and, you know, forest bathing is not stripping your clothes off, as my husband thought, running through the forest. Because he said, can I be there for that? He said, when are you shooting this bit? I'm like, no, it's not a bunch of women running through the forest. But forest bathing is, you know, the forest, the woods, the trees give off so much. And if you're anxious, which many of us are today, and you're really feeling on the edge, go to a park. It is so essential. It's as essential as cleaning your teeth or you know, that email you've got to get out. Go and spend 20 minutes. Find a tree that you just love. That's your tree. Watch it go through the seasons. Talk to it. Remember, people used to talk about, oh, my mum was crazy. She talked to trees. Well, actually, she wasn't crazy, because there's an energy and you do feel it. And so these are things you can do anywhere. And I walk in the woods every day, and I'm lucky. I have woods here, but you can find a park near you or a bench. You know, go and sit under a bench and just do nothing. Put your phone away for 20 minutes and and sometimes it's very difficult. It's very hard to get into that habit, but you say, I'm going to do it every day for a week.
Sounds like mindfulness. It's mindfulness. It's really hard.
It's very hard for people. And mindfulness, I think it always, for me, it's terrifying, you know, and we have a mindfulness expert at our retreats who's American. She's from Boston and lives here, teaches in Rome, and she's incredible. But people are terrified when they go to, you know, we have a meditation pond and we go down there. You know, I'm sitting there with one eye open to make sure everybody's having one time, and I'm thinking, oh, I think there's a leak in the pond, or there's this, you know, I can't get into it. But if you do something as simple, kind of don't call it mindfulness, just say it's my time, and just say, I'm going to do nothing for those 10 minutes or 20 minutes. I'm just going to sit. And it's normal that these thoughts come in and out. But bit by bit, you'll be listening to a bird, or you'll be, you know, even if you do, your mind wanders, it doesn't matter, but just give yourself that time. And again, there's a Jackie box, you know, when we talk about this, that explains what actually scientifically happens to your body and the importance of it, because that's why we get drained. That's why we feel it's a terrible circle that we get into. And sometimes you do need the courage to knock on a door and say, look, I'm making pasta Sunday afternoon. I know it's crazy. Do you want to come and help me? I can guarantee very few people are going to say, you know, that mad woman next door, and shut the door in your face. But that's what we think.
Yeah.
You know, we think people, but we're all the same now. And loneliness, we have, you know, we used to have the average age was 40 to 60 come here. Now we get younger ones, and who are the most anxious and very afraid, you know, because they're not giving time for themselves. They're not listening, and they're not making real friends. So how do you do it? When you see that row of 5 ladies in the village with their little legs dangling on the wall, and they're there every day at 6 o'clock, you know, and you see them all over Rome. It's like, what are they talking about every day? Doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. But something is happening. You look at their skin, you look how healthy they look. And you know, one of the saddest questions I get from our guests, we take them to the market, Montepulciano, Thursday market, amazing market. They get cheap shoes and fabrics and linens and, you know, but the one question that brings me to tears is they go, why are there so many old people here? And I say, that's the wrong question. Where are all your old people? Where are they? You're in Boston. Where are they?
That's a great way to look at it. Wow.
Because in Italy, they're with their families, they're at home. Mind you, I do tell my children that, and they say they've already booked Windy Pines for me. But no, you're not living with us, Mum. But that is a beautiful way of life, and Asian communities live like that. European, the old Portugal, France, Italy, the old communities, they look after their families, and those older people have a purpose, because their children are at work. So they have to go and get the roast chicken for dinner. They have to do that. They have to pick up the grandchildren and stuff. Keeps you alive. Better than an old people's home.
Much better, much better.
Yeah.
I just keep thinking it takes a village. I know that statement's been cliched, but I've always felt that way in regard to my Italian family and my Italian life. It's multi-generational. We all do something. Sometimes it's a pain when you have to be at every single birthday dinner.
Exactly. But it's like that word, the passeggiata. I don't know if I say that right, but I used to think when we were coming here looking for houses and stuff, wherever I was in the country, it could be a main road, it could be a back road, there was a line of people walking at the same time every day, and it has a name. And so what does it mean? It means A, you get your exercise. It doesn't have to be a marathon run. Everybody's out, mums with strollers, teenage kids chatting away, some go straight for an aperitivo, grannies are out, everybody's out. So it's a way at the end of the day, before you start the dinner, to get together. In England, we have the pub, and it's pretty much the same thing. It's that buffer, in North America, we get in the car. You finish work in the old days, before COVID, you get in the car. Now with COVID, you go from the living room or the kitchen table, maybe to the bedroom. That your commute is the hallway, which is just increasing our loneliness. Yeah. And yes, it will be over. But when you go to, say, Rome, and all those, they're not just tourists sitting in the piazzas. They're friends catching up, having a chat, having a drink. They drink especially less than Brits, but it's having the drink is the excuse to sit down and talk. My mum was widowed at 33, and she had a neighbor over the fence. And I used to watch her chatting with this neighbor, and that's what got her through it, because they could talk about, we had lodgers to make some money. We had a couple of men would live in the house, and she had to feed them in the evening and stuff, and she would laugh at these guys, and they were London men, and we were in the middle of nowhere, and she was obviously sad because she'd lost my dad, and she had 4 children under 10, but what got her through it was you just shooting the breeze over the fence. Now we've learned to do that through social media, which is great. It's got its purpose, but we need to now, for our own sanity, talk in person. We need to go to find a piazza, find a coffee shop that you love. And I say to people, coffee is an institution in Italy. It's also an institution in America. But the way they drink it is different, right? In Rome, you walk into a bar, the noise level is crazy. Hey, no, you're all talking. You lean at the bar, you rarely sit down, but you never take it out. And you drink it, have a great day, off you go, but you've had that lift. Those endorphins have flooded through you. In North America, you go in, you get it in a styrofoam cup, you get in the car,
and you go,
and off you, and you're alone. So the coffee does its thing, but you've had no social contact really. Why not say, okay, for 10 minutes, I'm going to sit down and have it out of a porcelain cup. And I'm going to talk, and you'll start to recognize people. I'm going to talk to the girl sitting at the next table saying, oh, coffee's good today. People can only ignore you, and talk to somebody else. And then you realize you feel good. It's like somebody smiling.
It's funny. My younger daughter, so we've lived in the same neighborhood ever almost since she was born.
What happened was in the 60s and 70s, especially in America and Canada, where, you know, we had this mass construction, and the dream then was suburbia. We had wider streets, we had trees, you got people out of the cities and into suburbia. And then suburbia grew and grew and grew, and the houses got closer together, they got further out, everybody needed a car. So what happens now? You walk out of your house, into your car, and sometimes you don't even walk out of your house, you go into your garage and into the car, and you're gone. So you've missed, you might say good morning to the neighbor as he walks down the path. Now you can't change that. We can't go backwards. So you have to find a new form of community. I'm not saying in Joy that people have to live in a little village or, you know, with the piazza and stuff like that. No, but we need to find something different. We have to say, okay, let's join clubs. You know what's a big thing in England now are foraging clubs. And I love this because, you know, the Italians forage. And when I first came here, you know, you'd see people, you know, I'd see this old man and he'd have his pants tied up with string and he'd be in the bushes pulling things out. And I would say that, you know, he must be so poor because he can't buy his own garlic. Turns out he owns 20 vineyards down the road, you know, he's got more money than sense, but he gets the best garlic. He knows where to find them, you know, and so now, you know, we're creating these foraging clubs where what happens is let's say it's Sunday afternoon. It's somewhere where you can go alone because not everybody has somebody they can go with. So what happens? You get to go out in the fresh air. You get to learn something about a particular leaf that you can eat, and you get to meet new people. And you have a lovely afternoon and you make new friends. Because also, as you get older, it's harder and harder. When you've got young children, it's very easy to make friends because that's your connection. You meet other mums, you know.
Yeah, school, you've got the vet, sports, that's how you commit. But then when that's done, or if you don't have that.
Well, that's what the empty nest syndrome is all about. Suddenly, you know, you're 45, your kids have gone off to college, and some women take this really, really hard. Not me, I changed the locks. I moved and didn't tell them. But, you know, I was like, yay, they've gone. But, you know, a lot of people do find because your purpose has gone. Your purpose is to get up in the morning, get the kids off to school, make sure, you know, you can fit in your job, you know, get the groceries. You have a crazy life when you're raising children. Suddenly that's being dialed back. And it's a very hard time for people. And so you need to find a new purpose. The kids aren't coming back. Well, sometimes they do, but you don't want them back. But, you know, they go on to their own lives. They get jobs, they get partners, they get, you know, and you know, it's a different scenario. So you can't be the mum following your kids all over. You have to be the purpose. You have to find what you want to do. And then you see the advantage of that. You're not spending as much money as you do with small children. You know, your money's yours. You've got more time. I mean, you remember the days of going to the movies. It would cost you a fortune with your kids. You have to get a babysitter. You have to, you know, just the cost of going out. So you think, oh, can't be bothered, you know. Now you can go and, kids are gone, you can go and sit in a bar all night. You know, you can go to a movie. You can do all these things. You can spend time with your partner. You can go out with a friend. And so look at the advantages of that. Instead of sobbing into your coffee, say, you know what, this is my time. I'm going to write that book. I'm going to start my own coffee shop. I'm going to, you know, do whatever. You know, you can start a next chapter, but then you need to have the help.
So speaking of next chapters, I just wanted to quickly ask you, I know that you have a new chapter right now. We're past the book. You have a new product launch. Is that correct?
Yeah, we launched yesterday. So I've had a few in the past. So it's cheap and cheerful. It's beautiful. And but it's only available in Canada, but it's in a huge chain across the country. But it's all kinds of linens. And I'm actually sitting on one of the beds we filmed in yesterday. So, I do have a team that still do that. So it keeps my hand in design, which I still love. But I love here better. So, I'm lucky because this is a big place and having these retreats helps run it. Like you know, I found it quite easy making friends here, because we have this mutual friend, Arlene, and I just reached out to her, and you do that because you've got one thing in common, and that's the good, the bad, and the ugly, and the frustrating of Italian life. And nowhere is perfect, nowhere. So you have to work. I love Tuscany, but there are things that drive me crazy. Like, I was back in Canada in September, and I had to go and get an international driving license. And I walked in. The woman, I thought I was all ready for a fight. And then the woman said, "Do you have a picture?" I said, oh no, I don't. She said, "I'll take one." And I was standing back out in the street 3 minutes later with my license. If that was here, it'd be like a month, I'm like, oh no, I don't know, whatever. Because those kind of things take longer, they're frustrating, they're harder. So, in North America, you get things, those kind of bureaucratic things get done quickly, but you have to weigh it all up, and you have to delve on the good. So when you're frustrated about something, you have to say, yes, but look at that view, or that bowl of pasta, or friends and things like that.
Exactly. I agree. Well, I'm so excited that I had the chance to speak with you. I love your book. I'm really happy to share it with our listeners on Ciao Bella. So everybody, I'll have it in the notes on my website, ciaobella.co, but please take a look. I feel, Debbie, if you want to present your book title, tell us the book's name, everything.
Joy, Life Lessons from a Tuscan Villa. So it's everything I've learned here about the way of life of these people. And it's a picture book. It's a large hardback. You can get it on Amazon. The great thing today is we get books sent from all over the world. And
the photos are really, they are really, I was looking at them. I was really captured by them. They're really beautiful. So kudos to your photographer.
Yeah.
You also.
Stacy Van Berkel, she's from North Carolina. I just open the book sometimes and there's a picture and it just makes you smile. And the more you smile, the more, again, these endorphins go through you and you feel better, you feel healthier. And I think it came at a good time because I started it before COVID. And then, of course, I was 3/4 of the way through and I thought I might as well I'll just call it bloody miserable because we're all inside and stuck and then I realized how much it resonated with people, that we're craving contact. We crave to see people's lovely faces and their smile. We're craving taking the masks off and it is coming. It is going to get better. And so I think, it's like going on a diet. You want more of the good stuff, so when it's taken away from us, which COVID robbed us of so many good things in life, when it's taken away, we appreciate it more. And now we want to get it back. We want more joy.
Well, thank you for bringing me joy. And thank you for bringing all of us joy. And it's been a pleasure having you on Ciao Bella.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Ciao Bella. If you'd like to know more about today's guest, please visit ciaobella.co and click on the podcast link, or go directly to ciaobella.co/podcast. Want more Italy? You can find all my episodes on iTunes and Spotify and Stitcher. When you have time, subscribe to iTunes and rate the podcast. What are you waiting for? And if you want to be part of the podcast, email me or DM me your Italy questions. To learn more about me and my work, go to my website, ericafirpo.com, and follow my Italy adventures on Instagram at ericafirpo. Ciao Bella! And a very big thank you and hug to Massimiliano Yonta, the producers of Ciao Bella, who continue to make me sound and feel great.